Hello, and welcome to Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord, a game advertised as allowing you to engage in diplomacy, craft, trade. But what I should say is, do you like world conquest? What about recruiting copious amounts of villagers to die for your personal gain? How about forcibly reappropriating your enemy's lands for trade purposes? Would you like to behead a man just because he looked in the general direction of your wife? Then Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord might just be the game for you. Stab your enemies, cleave their head off with an axe, shoot them in the face with a crossbow, use a trebuchet and launch large rocks at a castle where their family's cowering. That's right, there ain't no Geneva Convention in this game. Go crazy, go wild, behead your enemy's wife. Behead so many people the entire population gangs up on you and beheads you. Go buy this game right now. Yes, it's highly possible I've consumed more than the safe daily intake of caffeine. Yes, this price is a scam. No, TaleWorlds did not pay me to make this video. I just think this game is cool, and I highly recommend it. Anyways, with that accurate description out of the way, let's dig in. Say hello to Genghis Khan. Yes, I know Khan technically wasn't his last name, and in the context of old Genghis, Khan is a rank more akin to king or emperor, but nothing else really seems to fit. Now let me explain my plan for this run. I wanted to attempt to remove the head of every single head of state. Let's see how far I get. I awoke to find that my younger brother had been kidnapped by a group of tenacious rapscallions. Not good. Even better, my sister was also kidnapped, but by sea rapscallions. I decided it was best to rescue my brother first as he was closest to me. Now I can't lie, I had just spent 3 hours troubleshooting mods, so I was immensely frustrated and I wasn't really listening to the story at this point. All I know is that this guy is somehow involved. I think he killed my parents or something. Anyways, he offered to help lead me to my brother, and considering I didn't really understand if I should be trusting him or making his head the first one in my collection, I took his advice and went to the bandits camp. Tried to use the stealth mechanic added in the new DLC, but I'm clearly far too impatient for it as I got spotted and my ass handed to me. Luckily I had some men with me, and after recovering, I sent them in to finish off the remaining bandits. And just like that, I had my brother back.
I knew you'd come.
For some reason the guy who may or may not have killed my parents chopped off the head of the bandit who took my brother's hostage. Guy's stealing my fucking shtick. Now on to my sister. I won't bore you with the details, but this questline basically serves as a tutorial for the entire naval combat system, which, now I'm editing this, I realise I only used a single time throughout this entire playthrough. What an absolutely exceptional use of $40. Whilst I'm at it, TaleWorlds, what are you thinking charging $40 for a DLC that literally adds boats and a clone of a faction that already exists to the game? That's more than half the cost of the game for boats. Anyways, with my rant over and my family back together, I set my sight on the one thing that you need to do absolutely anything you want in this game. Money. Now there are many ways you can make money in this game, but in my experience, none are more effective than simply burning wood. Yep, that's right. Buying wood and smelting it into charcoal with this perk is actually incredibly profitable. After many years of literally burning wood and selling the charcoal, during which I got married and had 3 children, I was rich enough to start my dastardly plan of beheading every head of state in the lands. So with all the boring setup done, I assembled 3 pieces of the dragon banner, which is some old relic from the old empire, assembled an army, and went to take over my first settlement. Now this army that I amassed unfortunately consisted entirely of cavalry, i.e. exactly what you don't want for storming a fortified position. So, being the cunning tradesperson that I was, I tried to purchase the town from its current owner. If you can't win a problem on the battlefield, throw money at it. Unfortunately for me, he wouldn't let it go for anything reasonable. I was rich, but apparently not rich enough. So enraged, like your average trust fund baby, I threw my toys out of the pram that my money wouldn't fix all my problems, and I besieged his city. But for whatever reason, the garrison commander made a catastrophic blunder and sallied out to attack my cavalry in an open field. And cavalry in an open field against standing troops? Yeah, you can do the math. As expected, it was an absolute slaughter. With that amazing stroke of luck, I had my first town. Now I knew that I had absolutely no chance of holding this against the entire Khuzait army. Luckily, I could just pay 200 grand to make peace and keep the town. That's right, I essentially got the town for free.
It's free real estate.
Not only did I get it for free, that town was actually the last thing I needed to progress in the main story and form my own empire. Of course, I didn't really care about any of that, and I just wanted my collection of heads. Which, now I had a way to actually wage war against the kingdoms I could get started on. So, without further ado, to start my conquest, I needed an easy target. Thankfully, the Nords, who had already lost some land to Valandia and Sturgia, was ripe for the picking. I gave my brothers some of my men, and I set them up in their own parties and sent them on their way, before managing to convince a lord from the Nords to join my empire. I knew I didn't have long before the Khuzaits wanted their city back, so I quickly marched up north and began besieging the first Nord city. To my surprise, the enemy once again sallied out to attack me. Writing this in post, I know just how lucky I'd been up until this point, but I assure you, I painfully found out rather quickly. Yet again, it was a slaughter. With the garrison dead, I waltzed unopposed into the city, captured it, and put it under the control of my new lord. To put in perspective just how bad the Nords are in an open field against cavalry, just look at this siege. I have 273 troops to the town's 1,544. Now, anyone would think that this would be a complete wash for the Nords, right? Well, they clearly thought so, because once again, they sallied out. And once again, it was an absolute slaughter. I seriously cannot overstate how powerful the Khuzait noble mounted archers are in this game. With that out of the way, I moved on to the Nord's third and final city. Along my journey there, I found King Sunjuric trying to gather villagers to reform his army. Finally, the first leader I'd come across. I'm not going to bore you with the details. He was in an open field, had freshly recruited untrained soldiers. I'm sure you know how it went. With his troops gone and no one else left to protect him, I finally added the first head to my collection. The rest of the war with the Nords went just as easily as the start, and before I even knew it, we had their lands under our control. On the way back, however, I was made aware that the Empire was unhappy that I had claimed the Dragon Banner and had attempted to start a new empire of my very own. I mean, like, really? I just beheaded a king and you're mad about me forming a new empire? Anyways, with the Nord Kingdom now my own, I decided I finally had the manpower for a preemptive strike against the Khuzaits to ensure that my city stayed mine. Most of the Khuzaits are actually off in a war with the Southern Empire, so timing was actually impeccable. We swiftly took the northern fiefs, and that was without any real opposition. With my position solidified deep in Khuzait lands, I left my lords to continue the war whilst I continued my mission and search for Khan Monchug. You know, I really expected that having the same units as the Khuzaits, I would find it hard to make ground, given they're the exact same troops as mine, but given the constant wars that they were in, it seemed that their troops were constantly dying, and I ended up just taking my high-level troops up against their almost villager-level ones. It seemed even my own lords knew that the Khuzait war was a surefire victory at this point, as they voted to declare war on Sturgia. I accepted their petition, and I left them to go fight in the war. I remained steadfast in my goal to find and execute Khan Monchug. And, luckily for me, it didn't take me too long to find him. He was in an army marching straight for my capital. The battle was a lot closer than I thought, but again, he was let down by his fresh troops. With his army defeated, nothing else was left to guard his neck.
I shouldn't.
Do it.
Here's a little song I wrote. Might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry. Be happy.
With Monchug scratched off the list, I joined with my lords in the war on the Sturgeons. Obviously not to participate, no, I didn't give a fuck about that. But I had my sights set on Grand Prince Ragnvad. Besides, they didn't really need the help, and I was on a bit of a time crunch. Remember that conspiracy that started? Yeah, well, its plans had nearly come to fruition, and when they did, all three Empire remnants were going to team up and try to put an end to my head removal fun. Although I am human, so when I inevitably got bored of running around trying to find Ragnvad, I did stop in to help siege a city. This turned out to be a massive mistake. Yeah. Remember earlier when I said this? I painfully found out rather quickly. Well, rather quickly was upon us. I went in as confident as can be, as up until this point I hadn't faced a single loss. I charged in with my cavalry, unknowing that they had stacked the entrance with Nord shield biters, as well as other spear-throwing units. With them on the rooftops overlooking our breach, they just picked us off as we pushed in. We hardly made it past the front hole. Luckily, a few of my men managed to flee, carrying me on their backs. I knew I needed to reassess my strategy moving forward, as the Empire used a similar type of troop quite heavily. And well, I figured that if my enemies use this kind of troop, why not just use it myself? I recruited a shit ton of Imperial recruits, whilst also regaining a lot of my lost cavalry. In order to train them up, I attack small sturgeon parties, and with the perk that allows you to get experience for discarding weapons after a battle, my troops are back up to notch in no time. With my new troops trained up, I once again returned to the site of my greatest military defeat and launched my attack. Knowing that I was facing enemy catapults, I put my troops in a shield wall. Really, I don't know why I did this, as it just made my troops tighter packed and would mean that the catapult would just get more shots per kill. But continuing the trend of me being incredibly lucky on this run, this actually meant that my troops played it more defensively when they rushed the hole, and ultimately it led to my victory. With my ego restored, I decided that that was enough participation in the war, and that it was time to hunt down Ragnvad. There was a reported sighting of his army near one of our castles, so I marched on over there to find him besieging it. I'm not sure which one it was, but one of the mods, unfortunately, it seemed to be causing the game to crash every time I fought him whilst he was in a siege camp. So, reluctantly, I had to let him capture the castle and then ambush him as he was leaving. Now, the Sturgeons were well equipped to defend fortifications, but as we both knew by now, my cavalry in an open field is unmatched. After a very quick battle, much like King Sanjurik and Khan Monchug, I freed Ragnvad from the burden of having a head. Pretty much as soon as I'd finished my denoggening, the conspiracy reached its goal and all three Empire remnants united against my Mongol Empire. But, with the Nords, Sturgeons and Khuzaits now all part of my empire, I reckoned I stood a good chance of winning. I had actually managed to sign an alliance with Valandia early and knowing that this was coming, although the stingy bastards now wanted $4.5 million just to be called into the war. I don't know what the point of an alliance is if you have to pay them $4.5 million to be called in, but serves me right, I guess, for not reading the terms and conditions. So, obviously, I didn't call them into the war. But I did want to get moving on my quest by quickly taking out one of my targets, and I chose Regea, Empress of the Southern Empire. So, I looked at a wiki entry, only to find that she died. Died a long time ago. Turns out that I spent so much time collecting, burning and selling wood that old lady Regea actually just turned to dust. And turns out Lukon, Garios, Durthert and Kaldog are all also dead. Yeah, I'm pretty shit at this. So, I'm just gonna have to go for their children. First up, the current ruler of the Northern Empire, Emperor Arion. I actually found him outside a siege camp on one of my cities. For whatever reason, he wasn't actually part of the sieging party, he was just doing border patrol attacking one of my lords, so I stepped in to help out. He had little troops and again was in an open field, cavalry, standing troops, yada yada. Flogged his army and did some head removal. Next up was Thephilos, leader of the Western Empire. I was going to go for the Southern Empire ruler, but the Southern Empire collapsed and the leader died again, so it was just too far removed from the original leader that I just chalked it up as a write-off. Now Thephilos is an arsehole. I spent the entire evening running around the map, going to every single location the wiki said that he was at, just to find that he wasn't there. Now this was a dilemma. Where in all of Kharadia could he possibly be? Over there? Under here? Down here perchance? I was not joking when I said that I spent an entire afternoon of gaming just trying to find this guy. I even got to the point where I was executing a clan member of his every 10 minutes that I didn't find him. I was truly descending into madness. And, well, in a real the sunglasses were on my head the whole time moment, he turned out to already be amongst my prisoners. The worst part about all of that wasted time is that my fucking brother died of old age. Oh well, at least I could take out my frustration on Theophilus's neck. With him dead, the remainder of the Western Empire was swiftly finished off. And just like that, the mighty Empire remnants and the conspiracy were defeated. Given that the only original leader left alive was Unquid, leader of the Azerai, it only made sense that he was my next target. So, like many US presidents, I marched my armies to the desert.
They're eating the dogs.
And, seeing that I spent $40 on this absolute scam of a DLC, I decided that it was about time I built myself a navy. I went and bought a bunch of Imperial Dromans and sailed across the sea. I knew I didn't have much time before he died, so I figured if I attacked his primary city, it might draw him out. And sure enough, whilst I was in the middle of sieging his city, he disembarked on the shoreline right next to my siege camp. So obviously I broke camp and chased after him. I was a little bit worried, considering I'd never actually faced any of the Azerai troops, but no problem at all for my mix of Imperial and Crusade cavalry. Honestly, it should be illegal how good these troops are. And, just like that,
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead. He died like a dog.
and then there were two. The weakest of the two was Mengus, the ruler of Battania. As with every single playthrough of Bannerlord, Battania was slowly getting overtaken by the three kingdoms it borders, so they were weak, and I knew Mengus would be easy to take out. Although, rather quickly I started having flashbacks of Theophilus, as I couldn't find him anywhere. And no, this time he wasn't already in amongst my prisoners. But, thankfully, I saw this on his Wikipedia entry. Now, Romand is the king of Valandia, and is the last head I needed for my collection. I couldn't believe my luck. All I had to do was defeat him, wherever he was, and then my mission would be complete. And even more luckily, he was actually besieging a Battanian town right nearby me. However, he was in quite a large army, and unfortunately, if I attacked him whilst he sieged, where his men would have major casualties and my life would be way easier, my game would crash. So, reluctantly, I needed to wait for him to take the town and then leave of his own accord with his men back to full health. It was a long and hard-fought battle. The Valandian crossbowmen were exceptionally effective and cut down a lot of my troops, especially my horse archers. But in the end, I came out victorious. After the battle, I immediately removed King Romand's head and took Mengus prisoner. It felt wrong just to finish my quest in some filthy Battanian forest, so I got on my ships and sailed home for the 8th and final execution. Once I arrived back at my very first town, I set up Mengus on the blocks, and that was the end of my quest. Well, sorta. It seems a little incomplete, seeing as I spent too long with the setup and didn't actually get to behead the original 9 rulers, but hey, maybe I'll come back and give this a second try. Maybe I'll do a run without using the medic who's 8 noble horse archers. But with that said, thank you for watching, and if you think I deserve it, please leave a like and subscribe. Okay, bye.